Hello again. This is another quick demo on Dog Waffle, and I probably should have explained how I created those exhausts on the engines, right? Something like this back here. As you zoom in, it's not very precisely positioned, but close enough for a distant view. And what I'd like to do is show how I did, what the trick is that I used to create these. This is actually a brush at this point. So I have it in my brush, and I can paint it, I can play it. And of course, this can be used for candles, nice vertical light, but you can store this brush and then rotate it in other angles. And that's what I did to place it behind these, the engine, to make it look like the engine exhaust. I also did add something different. I didn't use it in regular mode because it would add this blackness to the side here, although you might want that with some soot or dark smoke effect. But you can also change the mode to color, to additive or screen. Those two modes will work perfectly for that. So then it's really just adding that, and you can go several times if your brush is too transparent. If it doesn't leave a lot of impact, you can just click it a few times, or even blur it a little bit, and that will make a very bright spot. But what I'd like to do is perhaps also try the other mode here, which is the screen. And in the screen mode, it's doing a pretty good job there too. Hold on, let me click it once. There you go. So that's a great brush to have, and I wanted to show you a couple of ways, or one way that I did this one here. What I did is I switched to the swap buffer. Let's go J for jump. I made sure it's erased to black, so right click here to black. Make sure there's no alpha channel preventing that or anything. And what I used is the tool right here. Right click on this tool which has a linear gradient and a couple of other tools, right? This one here, the tooltips will show gradients, lens flares, special effects, and that sort of things. Right click for presets, and you see the presets. And what I did is first I tried the lens flares, but the lens flares will go all over the place because it shows typically reflections on your lens. So if this would be great for the exhaust, but this part here is not necessarily needed or desired. So that was not the way I ended up going about that. What I did instead, let me erase to black. The other tool that became the one of real interest is the Nova. With the Nova, you can set it to a couple of modes, the star 8 or 6 or so. And of course, you need the colors to be bright against the black background. So let's say primary color yellow or pinkish, and secondary color, right button there with cyan. And so you can do all sorts of things here, but this is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking a little bit more of a blur to that. So I may want to have a bigger bloom, medium bloom, right? And then I also may want, let's do the large bloom. And then most importantly, I don't want them starry in all directions. I wanted it just in one. It's an exhaust from the engine. So I need it in just one direction. Now I don't have one, but I can do two. Right? So with two, and you can indicate which direction to go with them. So you rotate it. Hold on, let's go and erase to black. There you go. So you can, let's say I'm sending it around here, and then click to the right. Of course, part of it I'm not going to want to use. The left side I don't. I want mostly this part here to the right. That's the direction of the exhaust. Maybe I don't need the large exhaust or the large bloom. Let's go and undo and try that again. And then maybe do another one with the right button at a different color. And you might also do a little bit of yellow, and have even a couple of them added there. Something like this. So you can even have a little bit of additional exhaust coming out there, like so. And let's see one more, perhaps a large bloom in pink again, or purple, and put it all over. Something like this, right? So now there's also additional blurring you might add to that, and that would be perhaps with the filter menu. You can do especially the motion blur, which where you control the direction in which it's moving. So you can go to the blur filter and look for the motion blur. There it is. And with the motion blur, you essentially have a little preview here where you can say in which direction to blur it. So just blur it in the direction in which that exhaust is supposed to go, just like horizontal, like so, right? And something like this. And then that will make for a nice a nice good quality blur along that. Now the thing to do is we need to pick kind of this one as the center, the hotspot of the engine, and it needs to fade on this side. We don't want it to go all the way this way. Remember, we have the bloom going both sides, so we need to kind of have, let me see if I can highlight that, and we need to have kind of a selection around this much, right? And so that's exactly what we do. Is maybe we'll use the oval tool to make it a little bit more symmetric, or a little bit more normal shape, like so. And then we can use perhaps a second selection. With the shift key, you could do, in addition to the alpha. It doesn't have to be all perfect either. You can do a little bit more, and then you can blur that selection. You can go to the selection mask and do like the box filter alpha. And if you do this with the show alpha mode, it will show you where the selection is and how much blurring you got. You don't want to get too little, but you don't want to get too much of that either. So do something like so. So now you have a selection mask that will pick up this area that fades to darkness. And all you got to do is Control B, like we saw in the other tutorial. There it is, Control B, that will pick up this selection, and the image is now in your brush, right? And you might want to store that. You can do all sorts of other things like increasing the saturation, right? Hue, saturation, value, those three sliders here. Hue is the first one. That will change the color perhaps to a bluish, hot temperature. And then perhaps we have another one. Changing the saturation is neat because you can have a little bit more of a color impact there. And then there's also the brightness or the value. So you can sort of increase that blurry effect there, that glow. And so there's lots of different versions of this brush that you can create very quickly, right? And you can also change the size. So if you have an object in the scene like this and you need this brush, this exhaust on this engine here, let's zoom into that a little bit, right? You need to rotate it a little bit so that it goes kind of in the same direction as the engine picture might indicate. So right now it's high, it's too high, so I need to turn it a little bit down to 4 o'clock if I'm thinking of a analog watch, something like so, right? Then click there and there you go. It's a little bit off, so let's undo that and give it maybe 1 more or 2 more degrees of rotation. And again, if you think that's too bright of a bloom for the exhaust, one thing you can do is to use this interactive undo. There's a shortcut for that right there. Or you can make the image, you can make the brush a little bit more transparent, reduce the opacity a little bit. So especially if you're in additive mode, you can go additive mode and then have it and maybe a little bit smaller. So let's go. Now, whenever you do this, by the way, it will go back, it will revert back to the mode that the brush has. So you want to make sure you do this additive mode later. And there you go. And so you can do it once, and then there you go, click it, and then click it again, and it keeps adding. So that's the nice thing about the additive mode is you can have 4 or 5 levels before you got the right intensity. You can undo until you see how much you really want to keep there. You can also have him a little bit at a different position. You can almost do a trail here, right? I mean, you essentially could paint it right there. So that's just a quick look at of how to create some of that engine exhaust custom brush. And if you got a brush that you really like, you should totally save that. You should go to the browse media and store that, right? Save this, and I have one already. I'm going to call this one Rocket Exhaust 2, Rocket Exhaust 2, and so now we have 2 of those. They're alphanumerically sorted. So there's Rocket Exhaust 1, that's this one, and it comes at a different angle because I have also, when I saved it to give it the rotation. So let's disable that, like so. So here, that's a nice way to get this rocket exhaust. And if you like the other one, then you go to the other one and maybe even combine it on top, right? All sorts of different ways to paint that once you have it in a brush. And the trick is to get it started by actually paint it into the brush. So there we go.